Good evening and welcome. Just going to do a test run real quick. All right. So, good evening and welcome to A Journey to Healthy Healing. Tonight is Thrive and Go Live Thursdays. And I wanted to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart. And I just so happened to hear something on the news this morning, although this content was planned out about 3 weeks ago. We're talking about the effects social distancing has on our children and how do we cope. I saw a news article this morning that talked about a father and his son that were having a disagreement concerning social distancing. So when I thought about it, I was like, oh, wow, we're going to be talking about social distancing and the effects that it has on our children tonight inside of Journey to Healthy Healing. So I know that this is something that we definitely need to hear and we need to talk about. So I do want to welcome you and I want to introduce myself. I'm your host, Keisha Way, your servant leader by design, and I help busy women create balance in their life, home, and business by implementing systems that work. As a certified life coach, I serve as the bridge between women and their transformation. Again, tonight's topic is entitled The Effects Social Distancing Has on Our Children. How do we cope? Our children have been drastically impacted by social distancing, right? And we as parents can't expect things to stay the same. We all know that once social distancing was put into place, that we drastically had to make changes. There's no going out randomly. We're only making necessary runs to the grocery store and possibly to the doctor's office if your doctor is still taking appointments. But have we really considered what is it doing to the children and how are they being impacted? If you're like me and I have children that are involved in extracurricular activities like softball and basketball, those are some of the things that have been taken away from them during this time, so to speak. Although they can go outside in the yard and they can still do those type things, they're not having that interaction with other children as they wish to have. So, as parents, we have to recognize that things aren't the same right now and they possibly will not remain the same. So, how do we take care of that? Communication. Communication is essential and it's a part of how we live. We cannot ignore our children. We cannot ignore what we see by spending lots of time on social media or spending lots of time over the telephone. We definitely have to make sure that we are paying our children attention, that we are communicating with them, that we have built a bridge and that they can trust us enough to come to us and talk about how they're feeling. And we need to know that we have to go to them and ask them how they're feeling as well. There's so many different things that are coming about with having to social distance. And one of the main things is anxiety. Anxiety is defined as distress or uneasiness of mind caused by fear or danger or misfortune. Now, anxiety does have many faces. Anxiety has the faces of anger, tantrums, withdrawals, laziness, defiance, yelling, meltdowns, or disorganization. And I know you may have picked up on some of these things with your own children because I've definitely seen some of these things with my kids as well. But we have to realize that by them being within the house and having to social distance from their friends and possibly some of their family members, they have possibly developed anxiety. As adults, we don't necessarily know how to deal with anxiety. So, do we expect for children to know how to deal with anxiety? We have to be able to recognize what it is that's going on with our children and change your focus from behavior to what is the need. We have to change our focus from the behavior to what is the need. Let me go back to what some of the behaviors may be with your children. They may show anger. They may be throwing tantrums. They may be withdrawing from you, showing signs of laziness, defiance, yelling, meltdowns, or disorganization. This can be defined as anxiety, the uneasiness of their mind because of fear, danger, or misfortune. Some children are actually worried about getting COVID 19. Some children are actually worried about their parents getting COVID 19. So we have to recognize and realize that their behavior may change during this time. But we have to change our focus from the behavior, and we have to focus on what it is that our child needs. So you have to ask yourself, what does my child need from me? Yes, we provide food, we provide shelter, we provide clothing, but you have to ask yourself, what does my child need from me right now? When asking yourself this question, it allows you to connect to the source of the misbehavior and help them manage their feelings better. You see the misbehavior, but you don't necessarily know what's triggering the misbehavior. It could be several different aspects of the social distancing. So when we go back and have that open line of communication and we're getting down to the source of what it is that's causing them to act this way, that communication is huge. And we just have to realize that communicating with our children is one of the most vital things that we can do as parents. And we also have to provide space for their feelings. I totally get it. I understand that as we were being raised, we were always taught to stay in a child's place. We were not given the conversation piece. We were not able to utilize our mouths. We were not always able to speak what was on our minds because we were told to stay in a child's place. But as adults and as we are evolving with our own children, we have to realize that providing a space for their feelings is necessary. I have to encourage my husband to realize that we are not raising the same type of children that our parents raised because we're doing it during different times. Therefore, different times calls for different strategies, different practices, and the old way can almost go away because of how much newness we have in the world right now. There's technology that can keep them connected 24/7 if you allow them to. There's just so many different changes from how it was when we were growing up. But we definitely have to remember for providing space for their feelings is necessary because yes, your children have feelings and you have to take into account that children know a lot more than we actually give them credit for knowing. During this time, we have to accept, allow, and understand. When I say accept, I'm meaning that we have to accept the fact that our children are feeling a certain kind of way. And to an extent, we have to allow them to feel this way. It's our job to understand why are they feeling this way? What is going on with them in this present moment that is requiring them to feel that way? And it goes back to communication. We have to communicate with our children so that we can accept, allow, and understand exactly what it is that they are experiencing. Because when you have multiple children will experience things at different times. One child may understand exactly what's going on and has accepted the fact that school is not going to be in session until possibly August. The other child may be having some type of resentment about not being in school and not being able to be around their friends or their teachers at this time. And if we think about it, there are some of their friends that actually have situations that are not the best type of situations. So our kids could actually be concerned about their friends that are having um to be home at this time. They may be experiencing, some type of compassion and empathy for those that are not able to be at school and experiencing the good because they may be experiencing so much bad and so much turmoil while they're at home. Also, expectations. One of the things that I always participated in when I was working a 9 to 5 was don't allow your expectations to be greater than your participation. Because we would always have management that would expect certain things of us, but yet they didn't necessarily participate. And I understand that when you are in an authority figure, you may not have to, but still, we as parents have to realize that we can't expect our kids to do something that we're not participating in. It's almost like when you ask a child to clean their room. If your room is not clean, that child may look at you and say, well, why do I have to clean my room if your room is not clean? So that's what I mean when I say don't allow your expectations to be greater than your participation because kids are very visual. They tend to learn by seeing and then doing. So step back and ask yourself, what are you doing during this time of social distancing? Are you constantly watching the news? Which, if you are, normally the news can cause you to be depressed. It can cause your children to be depressed because the news is to put you in a mindset of things are not good. Are you reading books? If your child sees you pick up a book and know that you're learning beyond the 12th grade or beyond your college years, they may too be encouraged to pick up a book or go ahead and complete their digital online learning, considering they see mom or dad continuing to learn and continuing to grow. Are you engaging with others? If you are stuck in your room and you're not necessarily engaging with the family, then your child may feel as though, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll just camp out in my room and just do nothing right now. So we have to make sure that we're engaging with our family members. And there's so many creative ways to actually engage with our friends outside of the house through our electronics. There's so many people that are having parties over Zoom, and you can encourage your children to do the same as well. I know my daughter has a digital dance party every Friday at 12:30 with one of her classes, and she turns on her LED lights. She props her computer up so she has enough room to dance, and you would think that there's more than one child in the room because she is engaging with others through her device. And we can definitely encourage our children to do that. But of course, to a certain extent, because you don't want them to be over the internet or on their electronic devices for extended periods of time. So I would say make sure that you're managing their time over the internet. You can even control their internet access if you partner with your phone company to ensure that you have access to that. Also, are you including them in activities? This is the perfect time to include your children in different activities that are going on within your house. I know my son has learned to lay sod. They are learning to cook. They are learning to be homemakers. Home economics is no longer in the school system like it was when we were growing up. So we got a double dose. We were able to learn how to take care of a house inside of our own homes with our parents. And we were also taught how to do that at school. But now they're no longer doing that. And I know they're in a push button world. They can actually request for people to come and do certain things for them, but there's nothing like knowing how to do it for yourself. So I would definitely encourage you to include your children in whatever type of activities you have going on within your house. Connection versus correction. This is huge. This is the perfect opportunity for you to connect with your child. How many people are actually connecting with their children during this time? Because I can tell you, previous to being quarantined home, I'm sure majority of the time was spent correcting our children and, kind of letting them know, hey, you're not doing this right. Hey, you're not doing that right. Well, right now we're at a point where we have the opportunity to do more of a connection piece. So I would definitely encourage you to connect with your child more. Think about before you correct them, have you taught them the right way to do something that you're having to correct them on? If your child is now starting to iron their own clothes, and if you see something that they're doing wrong, don't jump the gun and just correct them. Teach them. Connect with them by teaching them. It's definitely a must to connect with your child. Although correction is needed, I would definitely encourage that you make sure that you are connecting with them as well. And then 9 times out of 10, it will be less correction. Okay, so here is a quote from Dr. Shafali. And the quote says, parent the child before you, not the child you fantasized having. That's a very, very strong quote. Parent the child before you, not the child you fantasized about. So many people fantasized this storybook life, imagining the white picket fence, the two children, the husband, the wife. It doesn't always go as planned. And we cannot change how our children are. Our children come to us with God instilling them who they are. We can't change who God has already created them to be. You may fantasize about your child being a certain way, but you have to parent that child that's standing directly in front of you. That child may be just like their father, they may be just like their grandmother, but guess what? They're still your child. And don't try to change them. Just parent them through the best way that you know how. I also encourage that you empathize with your child. A lot of times we don't use empathy when it comes to our child, but we have to put ourselves in our children's shoes to connect with them and their feelings. Don't demand that they cope with the things the way that we desire them to. Be compassionate and learn from your child during this time. Our children are great teachers, even by not necessarily speaking all the time. If you just sit back and watch your child, you'll see that your child is very responsible in certain ways. You'll see that your child has already mimicked the things that they've seen you do. So if something is not right, that is where we go in and we have that connection with them. We have that conversation with them, but we definitely have to empathize with them during this time, especially because they're not able to hang out with their friends. They're not able to be in the school with their teachers. And definitely for the class of 2020, I know my niece is being affected by it greatly because there's no prom, there's no senior night, there's no baccalaureate, and most importantly, there's no graduation. So we definitely have to empathize with our children at this time because they too could be dealing with so much more than meets the eye. So we definitely have to empathize with them during this time. But I also want to ask you, as we are dealing with our children, how is your personal self care? Are you meditating? Are you doing yoga? You could journal. You could walk through your neighborhood. You could do in home facials. You could also do gardening. These are just some small tips that you can do to provide self care for yourself. Because as a parent, we cannot pour from an empty cup. We definitely have to make sure that we're filling ourselves back up before we can take care of others. So I definitely want you to take a look at meditation, take a look at doing yoga, take a thought process to sit down and journal, go walking in your neighborhood. You can even invite your children to do all of these things with you. Meditation is extremely good for children. Yoga as well, journaling. They can write about what's going on, what they're feeling right now, and taking a walk through your neighborhood with your children. You can do that. Facials, if you have a daughter, which my daughter doesn't want to do it right now, but if you have a daughter, maybe even your son, talk about the importance of skincare. Talk about, making sure that you have a regimen in place for your skin. And gardening. Why not start a garden right now? For one, it's therapeutic, and for two, it's going to be healthy. With all the things that are going on in the world right now, it's time that we get back to growing our own food and ensuring that our family has the best food possible. So I definitely encourage you to manage your own self-care. So let's recap over the things that we've already talked about. We talked about communication. Communication is definitely key. We talked about the different phases of anxiety, which could include laziness. It could include yelling or temper tantrums and whatnot. And we also talked about changing your focus. Don't focus on the behavior. Focus on what the child is feeling, and provide space. Provide them space so that you can truly connect with them. Also, accept, allow, and understand your child. Don't try to change your child, but definitely accept, allow, and understand them. And expectations and participation. Don't allow your expectation to be greater than your participation. Also, connection versus correction. A child would much better is better off connecting with you versus you always correcting them. And like I said, if we're connecting with them, there'll be less correction, and the child will definitely become closer to you as a parent. Empathize with them during this time. Empathy is something that we don't always express, but I definitely encourage you to empathize with your children during this time, because there's just so much going on and we may not know every single thing that it is that they're dealing with. And last but not least, self-care. Make sure that you, as the parent, is incorporating self-care within your own routine to ensure that you're not pouring from an empty cup. We want to make sure that you are able to communicate with your child in a healthy manner, because you yourself have a healthy mind as well as a healthy body, soul, and spirit. So we can have a Q&A question. A Q&A session. I apologize. If you have any questions for me, you can drop them down in the comment section. You can send me an email, or you can connect with me here via Messenger. So I'm going to wait for just a second to see if we have any comments. It may be lagging behind just a bit. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward. But if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comment section, and I'll come back in and ensure that I answer those questions. Or like I said, you can send me an email, or you can connect with me via Messenger as well. And again, I'm your host, Keisha Way, and I'm a servant leader by design, and I help busy women create balance in their life, home, and business by implementing systems that work. As a certified life coach, I serve as a bridge between women and their transformation. So I do have a call to action for you. I want to ask you to download the Mommy Survival Guide. This guide is not only for moms, but it's for every busy woman. So get your tips, tools, and resources by going to the link bit.ly, the Mommy Survival Guide. This is something that I decided to put together because I felt that in this time, there's always a need, and we definitely want to make sure that mommies are taken care of and that they're covered. So if you see your name in there, just know that I did utilize some of you ladies here in the group as a resource as well. So let's definitely stay connected. Again, I'm your host, Keisha Way. We can connect at my website, KeishaWay.com. You can connect with me right here on Facebook. Or you can connect with me at Instagram as well. And that's going to be _ Keisha Way at Instagram. And again, that is our topic for the evening: the effects social distancing has on our children. And I definitely want to encourage you guys to go back through and just take notes and let me know if you have